everyone. It is Kylie here. Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about naps and whether your naps or your baby's naps are restorative, because I am sure that you have heard from various places on social media, some Instagram accounts that you might be following, perhaps you have read in a book, perhaps you've heard from your pediatrician, or maybe you've even worked with a sleep consultant or a sleep trainer who has basically told you that naps need to be a certain length on an unmoving surface in order for them to be restorative, and that anything less than a 45-minute nap doesn't really count. I am here to tell you that is BS. Okay, so let's start a little bit with, sorry, I have so many things on my screen right now and they are distracting me. Okay, so let's start with what the function of naps are. So why do we nap even in the first place? Or why do we even want our babies to nap in the first place? Because if you've been following me for a while, or if you are new, then you know that I really love teaching about what biologically normal infant sleep is. And the truth of the matter is we cannot force our babies or toddlers or children to sleep if they do not want to. Just like nobody can force you to sleep if you don't want to, we can't force them either. It is really, I've done videos on this, but it's really a biological process that happens with homeostatic sleep pressure and circadian rhythm kind of coming into this nice balanced place that then leads to sleep. And we can't force that. So naps are there for a reason, because really what is happening with naps is that naps are there to minimize the stress response that is caused by the increased sleep pressure. So when we wake up in the morning, we go about our day, maybe your baby is, nursing or bottle feeding, and then you have some activity, and then, you're changing diapers and you're playing with toys and you're doing tummy time, or they're practicing their new skills or whatnot. You go out for a walk, or you're going to the park or whatever, play in the snow. All of those activities are going to be increasing sleep pressure, as well as just being awake for a prolonged period of time is increasing that sleep pressure. And as the sleep pressure builds up, it sort of fills our tank of, if you picture an empty bowl and you're filling in, a little bit of tummy time, a little bit of feeding, a little bit of diaper changes, a little bit of, walk in the park or whatnot. You're filling this bowl. This is your tank that you have for the day. And you're filling it with all of these different things. And what happens is that when we fill the tank with all the activities, along with the time spent awake, we can start to overflow this tank. It becomes too much. And this is when we get cranky, we get stressed, babies are the same, and overtired, okay? The other thing to think about is that, babies have very active brains. There's a lot of things going on as they're learning all of their new skills. And so they do require these little breaks during the day when we have that full sleep tank, right? Because of all the sleep pressure activities and the time being awake, and the nap kind of helps to take some of that pressure off. So with the nap, we're taking some of those things out, right? We're emptying the tank just a little bit. And so that helps us to be able to tolerate for the next kind of awake period when we're filling the tank again, right? And so babies are also really learning a lot, and there's a lot going on in their brains. They're active. And they are really getting overstimulated, or have the potential to get overstimulated a lot more quickly than we do as adults. They're not able to tolerate being awake for very long periods of time, so they can get really overtired quickly, but also overstimulated quickly. And the two often work hand in hand. So if you have a really, really active day, you might notice that your baby gets tired a little bit more quickly, right? And so naps help to release the effect of that sleep pressure at different intervals throughout the day. And I'm not going to go into what those different intervals are, because those are going to change with your baby's age. As your baby gets older, they're going to be able to sustain a longer time being awake and more activities to fill their tank, right? If your baby is little, like newborn, it's going to be probably about 45 to 60 minutes of being awake and having just a little bit of stimulation before they're like, okay, I'm ready for sleep. And so what these naps during these intervals throughout the day, what they do is they really help us to manage that sleep pressure. So it goes up, the nap, it comes down with the nap, and then after the nap they wake up, the sleep pressure goes up again, and then another nap and it goes down. And then eventually at the end of the day, we do want to have enough sleep pressure so that they have a long stretch at bedtime, right? But what that's doing is those naps are really helping to prevent overtiredness from happening, also overstimulation from happening, which can increase stress to the body, it can increase cortisol, and all of those naps are also ultimately so that your baby doesn't get cranky and unhappy and not a pleasure to be with, right? And the thing that happens is when your baby doesn't nap and they do get into that overtired, overstimulated spiral, often they will get really, really cranky and they'll almost have more cortisol running in their body, which is going to make it harder for them to fall asleep and stay asleep for any amount of time, okay? So there's a fine balance here. And I know I talked about how naps, whether they are restorative or not restorative. And if you have been following me for a while, you know every baby is different. Every baby is unique, just like you and I are unique. We each have our own separate sleep needs. And with naps, it's the same. Some babies nap so easily for 2 or 3 hours. That was my second. My second baby, my daughter, she would have 3-hour naps in the middle of the day, and I would have done nothing to get that 3-hour nap. My son, on the other hand, my firstborn, he was the classic 20 to 30 minute napper. He would nap like 3 hours on me, but only 20 to 30 minutes in a separate sleep space. And it drove me crazy. He was not a napper in the stroller, really, 20 to 30 minutes max, and I had to be moving. It was a struggle. And I was always worried about whether he was getting enough nap. And really the key here is that if your baby wakes up from a nap and they're happy, even if that was a 20 or 30 minute nap, if they wake up and they're happy and they're babbling, if they're old enough to be babbling, and they are watching you and they're calm, then that was a long enough nap. If they wake up cranky, crying, fussy, and you just feel like something's off, they're probably still tired and that nap wasn't long enough. And this could be a 20-minute nap, it could be a 45-minute nap, it could be a 90-minute nap. Again, this is going to be dependent on your specific baby, which is dependent on so many things. But ultimately, their mood is going to let you know whether that nap was restorative or not. Okay, it's not the length of time. It's not where they napped, because a moving nap is still a nap. Remember, the point of the nap is to decrease that sleep pressure. It doesn't matter where you're sleeping. Sleeping next to you, if they're in a carrier or having a contact nap, oh my goodness, their body is so calm and relaxed in that moment. They are definitely getting a restorative nap. So don't be afraid of moving naps, carrier naps, contact naps. That moving nap of being lulled to sleep in the stroller or when they're being worn is just fantastic. And the point of the nap is to reduce the sleep pressure, okay? So that by the end of the day, they haven't accumulated all of this overtiredness and overstimulation, which could lead to more frequent wakes and also potentially early rising, because there's just more cortisol running through their body, okay? So I just want you to remember all of those things. I would love, love, love to hear whether this helped you to be a little less stressed for naps. And I know naps are one of those things that all parents look forward to, because you have a little bit of me time. You have time to get things done around the house, and oh, wouldn't it be lovely if your child just napped for an hour consistently every day? But the truth is that that's not necessarily normal infant sleep, depending on the age of your baby. And it might not be the reality for your baby and their temperament. So again, we cannot force. Yes, of course, there are ways that you can do, there are things that you can do and ways that you can try to lengthen that nap. You know, you can go in and feed them before they wake usually. You could lay next to them. Like I mentioned with my first, he was a classic 20 to 30 minute napper on his own. But if I lay next to him or he was on top of me, it could be easily 3 hours. Because they're calm and they're connected and they're comforted by being next to you. And so you could either wear your baby and do things around the house or get things done or whatnot. That's what I used to do with my babies. I would put them in the carrier. They would have some naps in the carrier. I would bounce on the ball while I did work. And that's just the reality. You can do that. You can try extending the nap with a motion nap. So if they wake up after 20 minutes and you know that they're still tired, you could either feed them or you could kind of extend it with a motion nap, or you could just lay down next to them and see if they'll go back to sleep. So there are ways, but knowing that if you try to extend the nap, they may actually end up waking up more because you're kind of interfering. So it's just something to keep in mind, but definitely try it. But again, we want to make sure that we're not necessarily aiming for a lot of napping during the day, because sometimes if we have too much sleep during the day, we have reduced that sleep pressure too low. And by the end of the day, baby doesn't have enough sleep pressure to really push them through a longer chunk at night. Okay? So ultimately what I want you to take away from this video, because I want to wrap it up, I want to keep these nice and short, but I want you to take away that you're going to decide on your baby's mood. You're going to decide that you're going to let that kind of decide whether that nap was a good nap, a long enough nap, a restorative nap, or whatever you want to call it. If your baby wakes up happy, that was all they needed. If they wake up cranky, fussy, crying, then they're likely still tired. They could have used a bit of a longer nap. You can either try to extend it or just realize that their time of being awake and the activities that you're going to kind of fill up their tank with is going to be a little bit shorter. Okay? They're not going to have the same energy or the same ability to sustain a longer time awake. So you may need to have the next nap a little bit closer to that first nap. Okay, so let me know what your questions are in the comments below. And if you are interested in learning more about biologically normal infant sleep, if you want to know how to tune into your baby's cues and what their tired cues are, if you want to start trusting your mama instincts about all the things related to sleep and what you're doing with your baby, and if you also want to optimize your baby's sleep, then I invite you to join me inside the Sleep Makeover event. We start on Friday. It is a sort of 5 teaching days over a 2-week period where you get access to me, you get access to some pre-recorded content, live Q&As, and so much more. So I'm so excited for this event. I hope that you join me. I will post the link in the comments below or above, wherever this video is. All right, that is it for me. If you want my support on anything related to sleep, development, reflux, or whatnot, then you can find all of my things at www.kylieetz.com. And that's it. Bye for now.